Hej allihopa, välkomna tillbaka. Nu kommer vi köra nästa föreläsning som handlar om att skriva ett CV på engelska. Tillsammans har vi nu idag Leslie som är från Rennert som är en språkskola i New York. Hello Leslie, can you hear me?
Hello, yes. Good afternoon, I guess, to you guys. Still morning in New York, but yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. So we're going to leave it to you. So you're just going to talk more about how to write a CV, a resume for an English CV. So please go ahead and start your lecture. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. As mentioned, we're going to do a resume writing workshop today, but just some quick information also about Rennert for those of you who don't know. We are a language school, English language school in the middle of New York City, Midtown Manhattan, close to Grand Central, Bryant Park, and the main New York Public Library. We've been teaching since 1973. We use what we call Rennert's experiential approach to languages, or the REAL method, to get students involved in language as much as possible. We do adult and teen programs for English languages, and also teacher training. So anywhere from being a beginner all the way to deciding you want to teach English, we can help you. Part of what I'm focusing on today is our business English program and this workshop, which is part of our business English program for the students who are going to be completing a English in action or internship with Rennert and an American company. So today, what you're going to learn is understanding the difference between a resume and a CV, what the components or parts of a resume should be, learn about the do's and don'ts, and then have kind of a template of your own to complete a resume. So one thing to note is that in the US, we use this term, resume, far more often than we use CV or curriculum vitae. You're like, well, Leslie, what's the difference? It's like, short differences, but a resume is usually a concise document, not longer than one page, that makes you stand out from anybody else who's applying for the job. Your CV is usually a longer document, has more words, explains detail about your achievements, your education, many accomplishments and awards and things like that. So again, what is the purpose of a resume? It's really to sell yourself, but in as few words as possible, because people who are looking at resumes are going to take a look, maybe 3 seconds, and then move on. And so if they don't have maybe some information or see something they like initially, that's going to be it. So the sections of a resume. Of course, you should have your contact information, your objective, work history, education, skills, training, or certificates you might have, as well as memberships for any groups you may be part of. I'm going to go into detail on all of these. Here are some things, right? It's a list of things that a resume should include, but I would like you to look carefully. Some of these are common in resumes or CVs in other parts of the world, but when you're directing your resume towards the United States market, there are a lot of things we actually don't want to include. So some of those things, of course, starting off, no lies. Please be honest on your resume. We actually don't want to put a photo on your resume in the United States. Hobbies, not so important. High school education, not important unless that is the highest level of education you have. So if you are 18 years old and you have only finished high school, put that on there. But if you have a bachelor's degree from a university, you don't need your high school education on there anymore. Nationality, not important. Marital status, not important, and also in the United States, they cannot ask you if you are married or unmarried when going to an interview. Birthday or age, again, they cannot ask you how old you are in the United States when you go to an interview, so don't give them that information, right? And personal pronouns, Depends on the company, right? But for the most part, we will leave those off. And then kind of as a joke, Comic Sans. Do you guys know about this font? It's kind of ridiculous, so please don't use it on your resume. When talking about layout, what should it look like? Again, avoid Comic Sans. It's not a very professional font. We recommend using something like Times New Roman, Verdana, or Arial. Size 12:4, right? You can even make your headings a little bit bigger if you would like. But they should be bolded, okay? Avoid capitalization and exclamation marks, right? We don't need to be yelling, quote unquote, or be too excited on our resumes. Avoid mixing your fonts. So as an example, you wouldn't want to put Times New Roman and Arial in the same sentence. Use bullet points. And then most importantly, be concise, right? If you have a one word you can use to replace 5 words, use that one word, okay? One important thing also, of course, your contact information, right? How do they know how to get in touch with you? You're probably looking at this and going, oh, this looks great. It has all of his contact information. Yes, but I would recommend instead more concise, right? Keep it shorter. I don't need all the details. Is it helpful to know that I'm in New York? Yes. Do I need to know your exact street address? No, that's not information I need right now. Again, in your contact information, you want to make sure you have a professional sounding email address. So if you have an email that you created when you were maybe 12, 13, it might be time to update that information. So crazychickenboy12@hotmail. Nope. sexyb4by@ymail. Please don't. What is this? Lots of numbers and letters, and I'm like, I don't know who this is, right? So things we do recommend, right? First initial last name, or your full name. Any combination of first name, last name is recommended. Numbers are okay. Like let's say there's a lot of J Parks, right? You might not be able to get into that part of it. So these are all good, but please, please, please keep your email professional. Another way to really expand your contact information is using LinkedIn. It's really the largest professional network. It's very global. I would almost say that it gets used more internationally than it does in the United States right now. So create your LinkedIn and go from there. It's really a great way to network. At the end, you can connect with Rennert on LinkedIn. So I'll add that in there. One more part of your resume, right, that you may or may not put on a CV, but this is your statement of goals, and you should change this for every job you apply to. Again, though, keep it short and to the point, right? Concise. This is the thing we want to see everywhere. But also make sure your objective includes something positive or a strength that you have, right? Using good verbs and motivated, hardworking. Skills in your objective. The name of the company you're applying for, include that in your objective, right? This is why they know you've changed it. The role you want to get, and then how you can help the company. So as an example, right, you could be an organized and motivated employee, right, able to apply time management and organizational skills in various environments, seeking to join Acme Corps as an administrative assistant, and to help ensure good internal communications, okay? So this is kind of what we're looking for in this regard. Okay, and then you're starting to think, okay, I'm starting my resume, I have my contact information, I have my objective, I know what I'm applying for, but what if I don't have any work experience? This is something that it's not really a problem. Focus on the other sections of your resume. We'll get through those. Play with the formatting, right? Stretch it out a little bit, right? Add some gaps, make some bullets, etc. Don't forget about these things. So internships, right? These count as work experience. Volunteer work counts. Maybe you helped out after school somewhere. when you were in high school, even in college, right? Maybe it wasn't a job, but it can count. And then don't forget little things like summer things you did for your family, right? Maybe you don't think of it as a job, but really it is a job. Okay, so don't forget about those things. These show that you have skills that maybe the companies are looking for. Now, when we get into work history, right, this is great. It explains a lot about what this person did, but again, it's too long, right? This would be great on a CV, right? Curriculum vitae, but on a resume, it's really not ideal, not what we're looking for. So how can we change this? Okay, we've made this from 70 words down to 22 words, all right? We have dates, title, location, and things this person did. Okay, again, work history, right? So we have dates, title, location, and what you did, right? No address though, again, we don't need all of that information. We don't need to know what corner it was on in Dublin, right? And then list 3 to 5 responsibilities for this job. Okay, so not just one, not 10, again, right? Keep it short, keep it sweet. And making sure we're using action verbs. So active verbs. These are 2 resources. I can send these to you guys if you would like them, but there's lists of action verbs to use on your resume, and I do highly recommend looking at them. Education on your resume definitely should go on there, right? As you'll note, we actually put an intensive English program on here because while maybe it's not a bachelor's degree, you're studying full time, right? And so that becomes your education and you're working to improve your language skills. And these things, like with your job, should be in year order. Most recent at the top, oldest at the bottom. Okay? So don't forget to include any language study you might be doing. When it comes to talking about your skills, and again, coming up with those action verbs, we want to make sure we include both hard and soft skills. Example of hard skills, languages, accounting skills, computer things, types of mathematics you can do, design, planning, SEO or SEM marketing. These are hard skills. Soft skills are I can communicate, I'm creative, energetic, team player, quick learner, right? So you guys see the difference between those 2 things? One is like something you probably learned, right? Maybe took a class, and something as a soft skill is maybe just something about you as a person, okay? Don't forget to include your training and certificates. These are very important. So first aid certificate as an example. If you have a scuba certification and it's relevant to the job, include it, right? You might not want to include your scuba certification if you're applying to be a teacher, right? At a school that's nowhere near the water. Include memberships of organizations that you're part of. So maybe you did participate in a sport, right? Or you earned a medal in doing something. You volunteer at the local senior center. Little things that show your soft skills, right? So showing you as a full person on a single piece of paper, right? So here's an example of what a resume might look like. You'll notice Jeffrey, right? It's very easy to read, right? We're not going to struggle to read this. He has his summary or objective at the top, education underneath that, experience, and then skills at the bottom. It depends on the job. Sometimes we might rearrange some of these things, put our experience maybe above our education, but for the most part, this is what a final resume product will look like. So I know that was kind of short, but I also know that people tend to have lots of questions, or if you have any vocabulary questions about things I said, happy to answer those as well. Any questions at all?
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
How many jobs experience should you have on the resume? Because you had only the 2 last one, right? Because we want to keep it short on 1 page.
Right. So again, this is Jeffrey. So one thing you'll notice, right, is he made his margins quite narrow. Okay. So we would want to include important job or volunteer experience that is for whatever you're applying for. Okay, so if you're applying for a marketing job, you might not need to include, if you run out of space, right, you might not want to include your summer of working at your uncle's construction company, right? So I would say, depending on what fits, but probably, again, 3 to 5 jobs, kind of like with the 3 to 5 bullets per experience. But if you start running out of space, right, maybe thinking about which ones you can leave off. That would be my recommendation.
So always try to have it on one page.
But yes, keeping it to one page is very important. So I do a lot of the hiring at my school, and if it's more than one page, I kind of go, ugh, more than one page. I don't want to read the second page, because as someone who hires, right, so from the other perspective, it takes time, right? You have 100 people apply. If you want to look at 200 pieces of paper or 100 pieces of paper. So you want to make it easier also on the person who's looking to hire you or bring you on as an intern, things like that. But yes, resumes should be concise, short, and sweet. So any questions out there for you guys?
Är det några som har frågor någonting? I thought it was very helpful because it's just like you said, we're more used to CV here in Europe.
Right.
So the resume, it's shorter. It reminds me a little bit of LinkedIn, how it looks there as well.
Exactly. And it's one of those things, again, kind of back to LinkedIn a little bit. You can take exactly what's on your LinkedIn and plop it into a resume, right? Or vice versa. If you have a resume, you can put it on LinkedIn. It's more similar. One of the big things, though, that's always the difference is getting students who come from Europe to be like, oh, you have to take your photo off of your resume, because that's, I think, maybe almost a requirement in Europe. That's something we see a lot when we are going through this workshop. But don't forget, all experience counts.
Do you write any personal letter, anything like that for that? Because that's pretty normal here in Europe as well.
Right. It depends on what they're asking for. So for our students who are doing our business internship program, we don't usually ask them to write a cover letter, right? So this is the descriptor letter. But I would say if you're applying for a job and there is an option to submit a cover letter separately from your resume, then you should do it. But if the option isn't there, don't include it with your resume, if that makes sense. Just little, so it's like, if there's an option, yes, you should probably, especially if you really want the job, then you should include it.
And how does it work in the US when, like, you know, in Europe, a lot of people are like, oh, you have to be very active. You should give them a call after you apply. Is that the same in the US?
Similar. So there's some things that I would say are the same. One is you should always send a follow-up note within the day, 24 hours, right? Sending usually we call it a thank you note, right? Thank you for spending time with me. But the other part of that is making sure that in your interview, you asked them, right, for when can I expect to hear back from you? So that if you don't hear back in that week, right, then you know you have, you can then write to them, be like, hi, just following up because you said, right, I would hear back from you by this day. I did not hear back. So yeah. Interview techniques are a whole different ballgame in the United States. It's very different. But I think the most important takeaway from this is, if you're looking at internships or jobs in the US, is that just keep it short, one page. Make sure that you don't include too much personal information, right? No photos, and one page, and keep it short and sweet. Yeah.
Perfect. I think we probably have to have another workshop with interview techniques for sure.
Yeah, interview techniques are, it's yeah. I give the workshop on interview techniques, and I'm always still nervous if I have to go to an interview. So, it's one of those, it's a difficult thing. But just kind of as we're wrapping up, you can see contact information both for the school and for myself. If you have any questions about resumes versus curriculum vitae, I'm happy to answer those. Our website, phone number, and of course, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I think that's all of our social media at the moment. So,
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Rosie.
Of course.
För er som lyssnare, som sagt, detta har varit ett litet smakprov av kursen Business English Internship erbjuds som man läser den i New York. Det finns möjlighet att läsa språk och även kombinera med praktik. Då finns det även liksom övningen med praktik, hur man söker jobb och så vidare. Mer information finns på vår hemsida. Om det är någon mer som undrar någonting så bara säg till. Yeah, Leslie, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.